Andre's happy to move them. Mark's happy to second them. All in favour? Against? That's carried. Thank you. We don't have any public forum, do we? We don't have any deputations, and we don't have any petitions. So we'll go to Peter Ryan, item 7, please. Thank you, Peter.
Morning, everyone. This is the key performance results against the vital measures of performance. It will be supported by more detail from the PMO and finance teams. Right, it's one of the first of the year. Levels of service are slightly down from the first forecast. They're still within normal parameters. Basically, we've lost a couple of percent to levels of service that we identified as being a little optimistic. We've worked with the manager and we've straightened that out to, until we have really concrete evidence that this is on track, we'll forecast it as amber. So in other words, slight drop, but to a realistic spot rather than an optimistic one. Still at 82.6, looking for 85. So quite a reasonable sort of performance. Key projects, there'll be more detail in the PMO report, but key projects are fine, they're performing well. Non-key projects are a little down. There'll be more detail in the PMO stuff. Capital planning is the other end of the pipe. That's drawing down budget to be ready to build. Both of those are slightly down on where we like them to be. But look, the PMO works closely with the units and the heads on this, and they did so exactly the same thing last year and got it back on track. So I don't have any concerns actually about that result or any of the ones above. Finance, OPEX, we're in a slight surplus of 0.6 of a million, 600k, and capital program is looking for a level of between 0 and minus 10. We're currently at 91.8, so just about 8% unspent is the forecast, and that's on track and within range and parameters as well. So before I go to any detail, I just wanted to also mention the sort of rationalisation of levels of service in the sense of we'll be looking to, when the LTP is finished, report them to you in a slightly different way. That is grouping things under similar headings in plain English. So instead of line item, light item, you might see currently 10 levels of service for libraries. They might be collapsed down to 4 similar theme things with a plain English title. You'll still have the same level of transparency around exceptions, but they'll be in more common sense groupings rather than just scattered line items. We're still working on how that will be presented in terms of technology, but I just wanted to flag that as a future step. There's a series of staff comments and remedial actions around levels of service that are not on track or amber. I'm happy to field questions on those. I may not be able to answer them all, but we're happy to go back to the heads of and report back to you next month if you have any questions or concerns.
Great, thank you very much, Peter. That's really useful. Probably from me, and I know we've touched on it before, it's just 4.2. So it's just talking about the following recommendations are in the process of being implemented towards continued improvement of the forecasting, which is really good. Do you just think maybe at the next meeting we could get a sort of specific update on what ELT are doing in that respect?
Yeah, I can.
Want to talk to a bit more
I can actually do that to some extent now in a very short space of time. What I mentioned before, and I may have gone a little bit too quickly, was exactly that 4.2. That Audit and Risk has said, look, if you didn't hit a level of service at year end, so middle of this year, and it was red and it didn't succeed, just don't throw green. But you've got to find some evidence or reason to believe that this thing has come back on track. You can't just simply flip back to green and go, she'll be right. So we've gone back to those areas and said, look, if you're forecasting green, where's the evidence? And if there isn't any, then forecast amber on the grounds that you're still working on it. So that's something that my team does directly with the heads of. That process is supported by ELT. So we are talking about 2 or 3% out of 100 though. So it's not actually a major phenomenon. These forecasts tend to end up within 1 or 2% at year end, which is as accurate as any of the forecasts of finance or any of the others. So even though they're quite operational and field oriented, and they are management forecast, they're still quite scientific.
Yeah. Okay, that's really useful. Victoria.
Through you, Chair, I've got a question in relation to regulatory and compliance. Thank you, Peter. Regulatory and compliance under the building regulations, you've got your measures around the processing of building consents. It's one of the things that I hear from residents about that delay. And we've got our actuals for August and September. I'm pleased to see that there's remedial action there with additional overtime to the backlog and careful use of external contractors, but I'm keen to understand what your time frame is where you think we can get back to closer to that 19 working days, because the actuals are showing we're still quite a way off. Can you comment on that?
Look, I'll go back to the head of and report either back to you or back to the next meeting. I don't want to speculate on their behalf. But what I will say is that remedial actions are always going to be a paragraph or two to say this is what we're doing to fix it. The full implications of exactly how long and when it will come back on stream, it's probably a bit more detailed than these formats allow. So we're happy to chase that for you and report back.
We're grateful for that, thanks. The second question also in compliance is in relation to your building audits. And we're showing that we've conducted about 185 audits in the current fiscal year. Then with a comment to say we're on track to complete a total of 750. Now my maths is telling me that we're actually not quite on track with that, because that's probably achieving about a quarter of the audits within a third of the fiscal year. So I'd be keen to also understand that, because 185 is a very long way off 750.
Well, that's true. As I mentioned when we discussed it, that is a year-end forecast, so they have until 30th of June. But if there is a reason why they feel they're going to get there, like there'll be more resources or whatever that reasoning is, we'll find out. We'll find out and come back to you.
Yeah, I'll be grateful
I
for
can't
that.
comment on what their basis for their forecast is.
Sure, thank you.
Anybody else? Tyler.
Kia ora, Peter. I'm just wanting some clarity on what the key and non-key capital projects are. I'm just trying to figure out which is which.
The key are the watch list capital projects. So that's the 25 to 30 that the PMO has identified and workshop with you as the key watch list ones.
Okay.
And the remainder are the non-key.
Okay. And just in general, for public knowledge, why are the non-key projects delivering at 80%?
That's given their volume, that's probably a complex answer, and I may either ask Andrew to come up now or preferably give him a moment to reflect on it, and he can talk to it when he does the PMO report. Cool. Would that be okay?
That's fine. Yeah, that's fine. I appreciate that. Thanks.
Great. So we've got a resolution on the table to receive the information. Sarah's happy to move it. Aaron's happy to second it. All in favour? Against? That's carried. Thank you very much, Peter.